So before I start showing you some of the websites that I use and all that sort of thing, I just want to give you a little bit of background of why I even got started doing something like this. So, hey, Dason.
Hey, Dason.
Hello.
Thank you.
Okay, so basically where I was starting, Dason, before I start showing the websites and stuff like that, is I wanted to give a little background as to why I wanted to write and why I wanted to publish and all that sort of thing, and kind of what my journey with this was prior to now. So I've long wanted to write a book ever since I was little, and I think that, you know, and I've alluded to the fact that on some of the introduction boards that, you know, I too was very much into family history and things like that, and I have family members that were writers, so I think it's a genetic thing that has come down through the generations to me. So I have writings of my great-great-grandfather. I have writings of my great-grandfather, and all that. And so it's like, okay, I kind of understand now where the genesis of that desire may be coming from. And so some years ago, probably about 3 years ago or so now, I was asking around to different faculty that teach writing. I was asking around of like, where would somebody publish? You know, where would somebody go to do this sort of thing? You know, and they were like, well, what have you ever done in your life? You're not famous. You're not this. You're not, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I said, that's not the point. That's not the point, people. I want to know how to publish, you know. And they said, well, what are you thinking of writing? And I said, well, I'm going to write an autobiography. And that's when they were like, seriously, nobody's going to do that. And I said, I really don't care if people buy it. I really don't care. I want to write it. Remember, the important part is I want to know how to publish. And I figure that writing about myself is probably one of the easiest things I could write about. So writing the autobiography was just, I felt like that would be real easy for my initial foray into publishing so that I could learn the mechanism of publishing. Okay. And so people kept saying, nah, nobody's going to buy it, nobody's going to buy it. And I'm like, I don't care. If it never sells, I don't care, you know. But actually, you know, people buy it, you know, not a ton of people, but I don't care, you know, it has sold. And so whatever. And so what it has done is it has at least given me a way, because one of the things in my own lifetime, I don't have children. And I never wanted to have children. And I figure my books are my little children that can survive past me, you know. And so I tend to look at them as, you know, how a lot of people have legacy in their children. I have legacy in the books that I write. Now, whether or not they're successful now, they could be successful 100 years from now, just because of the fact that they exist. Right? So I may not reap the benefit, but future generations of my family may benefit. And so I tend to look at it that way. And so that's how I got started with it. So when I first wanted to do this and was getting all this, oh, nobody's going to buy that, you know, and, you know, you're stupid and you're crazy to think that anybody will buy your books and all that. I was working at Starbucks at the time, and I got to talking to an executive assistant that worked for the VP of my division, and she was writing a book. I said, oh, great. So we had coffee, you know, and we sat and we talked, and she said, well, I've been looking at this particular website. And I said, well, which one is it? And she told me, and I said, oh, I've been looking at the same one. So we sort of validated for each other that it was probably the right website to use for building our first book. And so that's what I want to show you first. Okay, so some of the things have changed a little bit, but I'll tell you about that as we get to it. But the first website that I'm going to show you is createspace.com.
There it is. Okay.
All right, so this is CreateSpace, and as you can see, I have several different titles that I have published. And this one here, A Different Drummer, that is my autobiography. That's the one I wrote initially. And then at some point, you know, my parents had, when I started working on genealogy back in the day, when I was 16 years old, as part of a high school history project, I got very interested in it. I got very deeply involved in it. I built our family tree out many generations. And so when I went off to college, my parents kind of took over the whole thing, and they kept going with it, with me helping every now and again. And they eventually published books. And they published books in the old-fashioned way, where you sent off all this information and all that. And I sat with my mother one day and I said, well, Mom, why when you built the family history books, why were all the pictures in the back? And she said, well, in a typical publishing situation, you know, we wanted to put the pictures where the people were in the book. But she said that required overlay and printing overlay and all that sort of stuff to get the pictures where you wanted them to be, that it just increased the cost. So instead, you know, you'll see a lot of family history books where the pictures are all in the back, you know, or in their separate section, because there was less printing costs. And I said, oh, you know, by that time I'd already written a couple of books through CreateSpace. And I said, I could get them all into a different format and get all the pictures in the right place. And through Amazon, the cost of publication is really small. And so I then took all of their books, all of their family history books, and basically redid them for a different style of book, and also a Kindle version, because they didn't have a Kindle version. So when you see the Skelton and Albritton family, that's a family history book. Elmore family of Pickens County, Bonner family of Pickens County, you know, those are all my family history books. And what I did as well, because initially I didn't quite know what to do with versions. You know, you have an initial version of a book, and then maybe you do a revision of that book. So you'll see down here I had a revision, because in this particular book I added McGee. I added the McGee family into that book because it's the same line of my family tree. But I could have done that with this one here, and just actually said on there, on the description of the book, that it was a second edition, you know. And so I've learned over time that there are different things that I could do rather than having multiple versions of the book, that this is the version of the book. I can always change the title. I can always change the version. I can always do those things and upload a different copy of the book. All right. So, so these are all the books that I have out there. So do you have any questions right now of anything that I've said?
Is this the website that you used to create the book, or is it the website you used to publish the book? You mentioned Amazon.
Yeah. So in writing a book, of course, you use Microsoft Word. Okay. So you'll actually build the book in Microsoft Word as far as the contents of the book. This right here, this CreateSpace platform, is where it actually gets published. So this is where you put, what do you want on the cover? This is where, what do you put on the back cover?
Oh, and your description and all of that.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's the keywords and it's all that kind of stuff that you do for people to find it, right?
Got it.
Yeah. So it's all of the background stuff that needs to be created. And I'll actually walk through what to do with this kind of on this call, so that you can kind of see what it takes to kind of put that stuff together. So there's the writing of the book itself, your Microsoft Word document, and then you come here and you you know, put all of the stuff, you know, you get your ISBN number, you know, all that sort of stuff and everything, and then you upload the content. Okay. Then you set your pricing. All that stuff is done in this website. Good question.
Thank you.
Dr. Bonner, have you found that the books that you have sold, is there any physical copies, or is it all
Oh yeah, through CreateSpace, they actually publish, you're actually publishing a soft cover book.
Okay.
Oh.
And it's like print to order. So when it's not like you have all these excess.
No, I don't have to keep an inventory. I don't have to buy any of them.
Okay.
You know, like my parents had to buy their inventory of books from their publisher when they did the initial versions.
Right.
And they had to buy hundreds of copies to make it even worthwhile.
Right.
Now they sold them all. Thank God. You know, but you don't have to. You don't have to buy anything. And even if you did, you're buying it at cost, you know, yourself. Like I can get my own copy. I can order a copy. You see it there on the screen. I can order a copy of this book.
Yeah.
And if I order it, it's at cost. It's at the cost that it takes for them to actually print it.
How do they make their finances then? How do they?
Well, I'm just ordering my publisher copy. Okay. When other people buy it, that's when the markup kicks in.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And that's how they make their money.
The relation between this website and Amazon, if someone was to purchase from Amazon, would that somehow kick into this website where this would generate the physical copy?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is actually linked to Amazon. And I think this is actually, it is an Amazon company. You see up in the right-hand corner or the left-hand corner of the screen, it says Create Space, and then it's an Amazon company.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'll show, you'll see the screens as I kind of walk through this. You'll see how it gets connected up.
Perfect. That was everything.
And that's one of the changes that's happened recently. You can actually create now a soft copy version directly on Amazon now rather than this Create Space. But I kind of like Create Space. And they also distribute to other distribution channels. So I will always use Create Space as a beginning because of the fact that they sell in libraries, you know, they sell in bookstores other than Amazon, you know, so I will always have this one because it actually gives me other channels to sell the book.
You said you've only been doing this for 3 years?
Yeah.
That's 10 books.
Mm-hmm.
10 books in 3 years? That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, some of these, remember, they're revisions. You know, it wasn't like I was recreating it. Plus, like with my parents' books, the books were already done. I just couldn't get a soft copy of them. So it's just basically reorganizing it is all that I was doing. Okay. So for instance, like the Skelton and Albritton family, I did that all on a weekend. Getting it actually into Word, reorganizing it, and then going through this and actually setting it up.
Oh, this is neat.
Yeah. And so, you know, obviously the first time you do a book, it will be the most time intensive because you're learning how to do it. You're actually walking through all the steps. You know, it's like with anything, the first time you do it, it takes longer. But the second time, it's kind of like, you know, you probably felt more busy last quarter than you do this quarter because you were getting, I know, I understand.
No. I wish.
I know.
Good analogy, though.
Maybe other people, it might just be me, but maybe other people.
No, it's me.
Yeah. So the whole thing, the first time you do it, it will feel like it's taking hours and hours and hours and days and months out of your time. But once you do it the first time, it's like you'll have the pattern down. And if you do it with any other frequency, really the only time-consuming part is actually writing your manuscript. All right. So just to give you an idea of kind of how this works, I'm going to add a new title. And how to write a book. There we go. All right, and I want it to be a paperback. So I choose that. And here, this setup process, basically it just walks you through all the parts and pieces. So for instance, if you choose expert mode, that is because you have done this a million times and you know where you want to start and you know what you want to do. But I usually use this just because it walks you through and you don't forget something. You don't skip over anything. And so I always use the guided process. So let's get started with that. Yeah.
Can I ask, do you have to do a separate one for each version of that? So like you could select soft cover, but also audio. If you had all those, can you put them all in?
I had all of those. I've never tried that. because I've never done that on this platform.
Gotcha.
But I think each one has to have its own
like creation.
Yeah, because they're very different products.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but you would probably copy and paste a lot of stuff, as far as like description and all that kind of stuff, But I've not ever done that. That's a great question. It'd be something I'd have to experiment with, to see how that goes. Okay, so here, if you have a subtitle, you can put that in, and then, you put your author name, right? And if you have any other people that work with you on the book, such as if somebody does editing or somebody does whatever, so you see a list of things, that are here, that you could actually put information about your book, especially if you have a preface that was done by somebody, or a summary, or a supplement, or whatever it may be, okay? So you see there's all kinds of stuff in there, right? So for example, my mother-in-law wrote poetry prolifically throughout her life, and so we're putting together a book of poetry that she's written over her lifetime, and so she will be the author, and I will be the edited by. So we will actually put in here that the edited by was by me, okay? All right, now here's where the edition number, you can put an edition number. So on your first book, you don't have to use that. But again, if you do a revision of your book, you could always then come in here and change this to 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 15th edition, whatever it ends up being. And then English, and then I just take, today's date. There we go. Then I save and continue. All right. So the ISBN, that's that lovely number, when you're looking for books for class, you're looking for that ISBN number, especially if you go to Amazon to get a book or something like that. So you can do a free create space assigned ISBN, and that's what I do. Okay. Costs me nothing, so I choose that. Now you can use a custom universal one, which is $99. I've just never done that. Or provide your own ISBN. There's actually an ISBN company that's out there where you can buy ISBNs, but one of the things about CreateSpace, if you use theirs, then all of the distribution channels that they have available are available to you. When you start using some of these other options, certain distribution channels may be cut off to you for whatever reasons. I don't even know why. Okay, so I use that one.
I know why.
Huh?
I know why they're cut off.
What is it?
The this CreateSpace doesn't get a cut, I would bet.
There we go. That makes sense. Okay, so I'll assign my free ISBN. And so there we go. This I always put in my manuscript. So on that front matter page or whatever, I put these ISBN numbers in there so that if somebody wants to go find it, let's say they find it in a library and they want to actually buy the book, then they can take this ISBN, go out and Google it, and they can find that it's on Amazon and they can buy it themselves. So I always go and put this in the manuscript once I get it assigned.
Where do you usually like to put it at?
In that front matter, like on the front page, or the front page always has the title and, some of that, and on the back page, if you look at a lot of your books, you'll see that in that front matter, somewhere in there is the ISBN number.
Gotcha. Does this company print anything on the spine of the soft book?
Mm-mm.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I don't have one handy to take a look at that.
No sweat.
Okay. So now we're going to continue.
Just very quickly, what's the difference between the two ISBN numbers?
I'm not sure, but every book has the full length ISBN number and then a shorter version of it. And
Okay.
I'm not sure. That's not something I've ever researched.
Okay.
It's a good question though. Okay. So now here at this point, it's going to ask you if you want a black and white book, a full color book, etc. I always choose the black and white because it's the cheaper option. You know, and even when I have pictures in there, they turn out pretty well. You know, there's not any problem with putting pictures in a black and white book. Okay, I've not ever had any problem with that. And one of the things you can do here too is, you know, you can choose the size, you know, of the book that you want. So if it's a 6x9 or a 5x8 or a 10x12, yeah.
If you choose the black and white, your pictures, will they also be black and white or will they be in color?
No, they actually come out in color if they are color. Like a lot of the family history pictures that I have
They're black and white
are
anyway.
black and white.
Okay, so you would need to choose color if you wanted to put color photos, correct? Okay, thanks.
So it says here that the 6x9 is the most popular trim size. But one of the things that they do as well is they give you a download of a Word template that's already measured to that size. So for example, in Word, you can actually set, you know, what you want the size to be. And if you know how to do that yourself, you can just do it yourself. But if you don't know how to do that, you can download a Word template where from here you can take that and start your manuscript, and it will fit the size that you've chosen for your book on CreateSpace. Okay? And you guys can take yourself off mute. You know, you can ask questions as we go. Okay. My mouse is frozen. There we go. Okay. So you can also see on the left-hand side, by going through this guided setup, you know, it's checking off the things that I've already done with green check marks. And so the interior, it's asking me now to upload your book file, which I don't have it written yet, you know, because I'm just starting this, right? And so I can skip over that. I can always come back to it. So as I've been going along, I've been doing like save and continue. So it's keeping all of this information until which time I'm actually ready to hit the publish button, okay? So just because I don't have the book file, the Word manuscript ready yet, doesn't mean I can't continue on. So I can continue on. It's not a big deal. So, so we're going to click save. And yes, I know that I have not submitted my interior. I know that. But I can go ahead and click on cover over here, and it will let me go there. Okay. So building a cover is an interesting thing. For the most part, I have done the build your cover online because again, it's free. But you can always have somebody at CreateSpace do a professional cover design, and it starts at $399 for that. Maybe someday I will use their services. I've just not ever done so. Or if you have somebody, you know somebody that's a graphic artist and they've created a PDF book cover for you, you can upload it right here. I'm going to leave it as glossy. I don't even know how to describe what the difference between these are, but I kind of like the glossy. And you can kind of get a feel for these little dots to kind of show you why the glossy is just a little shinier, whatever. So anyway, I'm going to build it.
Our book is matte.
Ah, there you go.
And then there's probably an old book that was glossy, I think.
Yeah. So I'm going to launch the Cover Creator because this is the free service that they have, just so you can kind of see what it looks like and all that sort of stuff. And it'll take a little bit to load up.
For your autobiography, if you say wanted to put your picture on the cover, would this select build your own cover online let you do that?
Yep.
Okay.
For my autobiography, I actually went out to there's a lot of photo stock that's online, and I wanted a particular photo stock that was not of me or anything like that, and I wanted drumsticks is what I wanted. And I found this one that was, particular colors that I liked and all that kind of stuff, and so I bought a license to that, which was $40 or whatever. So that was probably the most money that I spent on that book, other than my time of writing it. So.
And when you purchased the license, is it good forever?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the photo stock places have different kinds of licenses. So depending on what it is that you want to do, some are cheaper than others. I think $40 is about the most expensive that I've ever seen in buying photo stock. But it's the only one that I actually bought a photo stock for. All of my other family history books either have a tree that I found on CreateSpace, or I uploaded a photo of a family member from many generations back. So what happens is once you get all of this stuff done, after you've done all of this, there will be it actually turns into a submit button. And at that point, you actually submit it to CreateSpace. CreateSpace does their own review of the book setup and the manuscript and all that sort of stuff. And especially if you have pictures in it. And this is where if I've ever had to fix anything, it's been because of pictures. Because pictures have to be a certain size and a certain blah, 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 and it will tell you. So once I hit submit, it will go out, they'll do their review, and then they will notify me that the review is ready. And then I'll go take a look at that, and I'll see, oh, this particular picture is probably not going to print well. So I need to upload a new copy of that picture into my manuscript. I need to get it to a level that will actually print well. And so I just go do those edits and then re-upload that manuscript file and then have them review it again. So it's kind of this little loopy thing that you do for a little while where CreateSpace looks to just make sure that it will print well. They're not doing any editing. They're not doing any of that. They're just making sure that it will look good as a book is really all that they're doing. They're not going to say, well, they will, however, tell you this word, we don't know what this word means. Is this what you meant? So there are words like in my family history book of nicknames and various stuff like that they will catch. They'll go, did you really mean to say that? And I'll say, yes, I meant to say that. So you don't have to fix everything, but it's a nice check that they do to make sure that, it's readable in a book format.
So if you have a picture that is not great quality, but you still want to use it, it won't be really crystal clear. They've sent you a message. You can still say, I still want to use this, because sometimes you just can't get a good copy.
Right. And sometimes that's the only thing you've got.
Right.
And sometimes, it may be on purpose that you're doing that. Like
Right.
I could see somebody who's doing a photography book, where they would want some photos that don't really look all that great, and they're trying to help explain how to do some sort of editing on that, or do some sort of, whatever, photoshopping or something,
Right.
to get it to better quality. So, these are suggestions that they make,
Okay.
and you're making a decision as the author as to whether or not you're okay with it or not.
Okay.
So what is this doing to the entire publishing industry? And
Good question.
and also when you're writing the content of your book, if you're not citing sources, so forth and so on, I mean, is there a check that's going on? And so let's say a professor writes their own book. I don't know who's to know that it's something that could be used for content in a classroom.
Yeah. Well, for instance, some of my colleagues have written books, and one of them in particular is used in the undergraduate program. And what they've done with the university is a lot of that money that's generated goes back into the school funds. So yeah, it's very possible to do that. But yeah, it is definitely a wave in the publishing arena that is perhaps taking a certain amount of market share from traditional publishing. And there's still a place for traditional publishing, you know, especially from a scholarship perspective. Like faculty members have to write and research and all that sort of stuff. So we would not get a hit for scholarship that's an approved hit for scholarship for writing something through here, because by going through a traditional publisher, you get a lot of review from subject matter experts and things like that. So that's what qualifies it as a scholarship hit for us. Okay. So we could not go through Amazon and get the same kind of hit. Does that help answer the question at all?
If I were to search for that ISBN number that's on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
It would not appear, or it would appear?
Right now it won't, because it's not published yet.
But once it's published,
you can find it. Yeah, it'll be on Amazon.
Gloria, are you wondering about just kind of regulations as far as making sure that published content is accurate, or?
yeah, well, that and I mean, you know, so I've always wanted to do an autobiography as well, and I'm just wondering if, you know, some of the stuff that I'm writing, if I quote something from what someone else said and I don't cite that as a source, could that person come back and
Sue you.
sue me? Yeah.
No, not at all. It's, if you write a book about your experience, it's your experience. No one can argue that. So for instance, when I wrote my autobiography, I wrote it totally from my experience. I didn't quote people. I didn't say that my mother said blah, right? I wrote it from, you know, this is what my mother said to me. This is how I interpreted what my mother said to me. My mother can't come back and say, I didn't say that, and sue me for it, you know, because it's my experience.
But if you had quoted someone, so let's say, for example, if I say, you know, throughout my childhood, we would joke around and, you know, if we pissed off my mom, it would be, uh-oh, you know, no more wire hangers, you know, which is from Mommy Dearest. Would that have to be quoted? And if I didn't, could I be sued?
No, because she did not write that down anywhere. You're quoting people, you know, when we quote sources, like in class, we're quoting written things that people have done, you know, so even if we wrote, you know, like a personal, something like a personal communication as being the source, you know, and we document it that way, that's one thing. But no, it's just like, you know, our current president is wanting to sue over a book publication.
Oh, right.
Right? And it's like, he can't.
What if a person, say I write a book and I quote Sally Krawcheck, her book. I quote something from her book. What happens there?
You should quote it just like you would normally, like
a normal citation.
You need to provide that reference.
Credit.
Right. You got to give credit where credit is due, because that's where people can sue you.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
For using their material and not citing it as their material.
As long as you cite it, you're fine. You don't have to pay for it or contact them. You just have to cite this is where it came.
In certain cases, like if you wanted to use a graph that's in another book, you do have to ask the publisher for permission to use that. But to just quote their material, no.
Okay.
They're good questions. You know, I was thinking about television shows and how when they use music, they can only use so much of that music. Otherwise, then they do have to pay royalties.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like in literature, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, for instance, I may write my own accounting and finance book because I have never found really good ones out there for the way that I want to teach accounting and finance. Mm-hmm. But there are certain concepts that I would need to at least, you know, even though it's been stated before a million times in a million different publications and all that sort of stuff, when you talk about return on investment, or you talk about certain things about the income statement, at certain points and places in there, there will be places where I put, reference material, but otherwise I'm having to reference every single thing that I say. And it's like, at some point I know what this material is, even though it's been published a million times and all that sort of stuff, it's like nobody's going to come after me for not citing something when there are, 50,000 different books by different authors about accounting and finance. I could not possibly cite them all. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my particular take on this material. Okay. And that's where I think people get tripped up, is like, well, people write accounting and finance books all the time. How could you write anything new? I can't. But I can write a different perspective
Right. On the same
on
thing.
it, on the subject, and a different way of perhaps giving the information to an audience that helps them to understand it perhaps better. And that's the thing that makes me a different author.
Can you go out and promote, if you publish something through this website, can you go out on your own and promote it? So let's say you have a personal website, or you have a LinkedIn account, Facebook account, or whatever. Are there any reasons or legal things that you can't do to promote your own book?
Have you seen my LinkedIn profile?
I haven't.
You should look it up,
Okay.
and that will answer your question.
Okay.
I put them all there.
Okay.
They are all there on my LinkedIn profile.
What if you're taking concepts that are generally known concepts, for instance, in physiology, the kinetic chain, and you want to use those concepts? I want to do the same thing with movement, body movement in all of my classes. The same principles apply no matter what you're doing.
Right.
And I teach it from that perspective.
Yep.
And the way that I teach it, there's no book. So I would take things like hip tilt and, discuss that. Would I have to quote that from somewhere? Because I'm using a new idea on it, a new presentation.
What you would want to do is, from a source somewhere, you can actually cite that, the hip tilt idea is not my own. Okay?
But how it's used.
But how
and
it's used is your own.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Right. And so those are the things that, as you're kind of working through this, you'll figure it out. Yeah, Jason, did you have a question?
I was going to ask you, have you ever looked at getting your published work into like a brick and mortar, like in, because Amazon you can upload, and this is directly connected to that. So you have an audience for people being able to purchase from there. But I imagine places like Barnes & Noble, they have purchasers, or something like that to actually
Possibly. Now, one of the things that I've done, especially with the family history books, is I have, my family migrated through the southern United States. So, and they were in particular areas. So there was one point where once I had the books published, I actually contacted for instance, okay, so let me back up a bit. So one of my Bonner ancestors owned property in Georgia, on the western side of Georgia, I forget the name of the county, but at that camp there's a college that's in that county, and the house of my ancestor is actually one of the buildings on that campus. So I contacted that university at one point in time, and I said, I would like to donate some family history books to you, especially the Bonner family history that I have, because it's connected to your university, and I will donate them to your library. So it only cost me like $3 to get my own copy of the book, and I just shipped it off, and they were thrilled to have it. And so that book, as well as my Harper family, also went through the same county, and so I sent them those 2 copies. So those 2 copies are at the library at that university in Georgia.
That's cool.
I've also contacted a few other libraries in places where they lived and said, I would like to donate these books to your library. And they're like thrilled. They're like, great, we will take them, you know. So they're in a few libraries, and that's just something that I've kind of done on my own, you know, and I've donated them. Not that I have, you know, I haven't done that with a ton of places, but that's one way of doing it.
Have you ever known anyone that published a book through this means or some other online publishing site that has made it in the, you know, the big time of publishing, New York Times?
I don't know. I don't know anyone personally, but when you sign on to these sites and you build your own account, I can't remember if it's this one or the other one that's actually on it's the Kindle publishing. So it's not letting us look at that. So we'll move on to other things. Okay. So yeah, in the review, you know, like I said, you know, once you submit, they will go through their review. They will have some things you may want to make some changes, and then you can get a proof of your book. And so that proof is something that is free. You can either get the actual soft cover proof, or you can get a PDF of your proof, one way or the other. The PDF proof is easier and faster because you can download it right directly from here. Otherwise, if you're waiting for the actual soft cover proof of your book, you're having to wait for it to be mailed to you. You know, so I usually go with the PDF proof of my book, because then I can look at it and I can go, yeah, it looks perfect to me, right? So then on the distribute tab, this is where you are telling it things like what channels you want this to go into. So the standard distribution is that it will go to Amazon.com and it will go to Amazon Europe. And then you've got expanded distribution. And here you can select that I want it to go to libraries and academic institutions, you know, whoever may buy it, because on the back end, I'd have no earthly idea how that works. You know, perhaps, you know, libraries and academic institutions are coming to this site and they're looking for stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's how it works. But, and anyway, I can select that. I can select Create Space Direct, so somebody can actually buy my book directly off of Create Space itself if they wanted to.
Oh, is the price different whether they buy it, say I buy your book and I want to buy your book,
Now,
and
once you set the price,
is Amazon or Create Space?
yeah, once you set the price is the price. It doesn't matter what the distribution channel, but your margins will change. You know,
More margins with Create Space, I'm guessing.
right. So the money that you get as as an author will be different depending on where it's sold.
Got it.
Okay. And then here, bookstores and online retailers, we're not eligible for that right now because we haven't selected a BISAC code. So as soon as I do that, I can BISAC.
What is a BISAC code?
Yeah. So
Like
basically you're putting a description of your book, you know, and you're choosing this BISAC code, which is, it says it's a book industry standards and communications category.
Ah.
All right. So it's basically, if you look at the choose function here, you're choosing what it's falling under. So I'm going to say that mine is education. I'm going to use that just for grins. And I'll leave it as general. So I'm going to choose that category just as a way of just showing you how do you do that. So you have to figure out which category it falls into and all that sort of stuff. It's still, you know, I can add my biography if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that for sake of this demonstration. English, country of publication is the United States. And then you put in keywords.
Book rating.
Book, right? Something like that. You have to check if it's large print or if it contains adult content, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to save that and continue.
Ooh, Kindle.
Okay. And let me go back to the channels. Now that I've set up that BISAC code,
Okay.
So I can select that, and poof, I can select that. Yeah.
Wow.
So all that Create Space needs is, what that category is that your book will fall into. Oh, it does tell me you must complete your book's interior before you can continue with this section. So it's not allowing me to save that or anything.
Okay.
Now the pricing, here we go. So this is kind of interesting. So for instance, you can put, I'm going to put in here that this book, let's see if it will let me, no, the interior and channels have to be done in order to do that. So let me go back to one of my other books. Okay, so let's go into this book here. And we'll go to the pricing. See, on the channels, I have everything selected. So this could be sold anywhere. So if it's sold by expanded distribution, I can't remember if I get a higher margin or a lower margin. I can't remember. But, it just depends on which place that it's actually sold. And on your sales dashboard, it will tell you whether or not it was sold on Amazon or it was sold through expanded distribution. It will tell you that. So let's go into the pricing. So here, if I change this to be $49.99 and calculate it, so it tells me that the minimum list price for this title should be $9.93, because on the back of it, depending on the number of pages and the pictures and the this and that may be in your book, it will tell you what your baseline price should be. And then you can go up from there. Okay. So if I set it at $49.99 a copy, then if it's sold on the Amazon channel, my royalty is going to be $26.02. In expanded distribution, my royalty will be $16.02. Yeah, so that's what it is right now for me because I set it at $29.99. Then here, if I check that box, here, let me do this. So I'm going to check this box, and it says we suggest a Great Britain price of 22 pounds and 13 whatever that is, okay? And that is what Amazon Europe would be. That's what my royalty would be if it's sold in Great Britain, okay? Then suggest a euro price, okay? So it says 25 euros, right? And if it's sold in Europe, then euros would be 11.28 is my royalty. Okay, so then it tells you, you can actually go here and see how royalties are calculated and things like that. And so you can kind of play around with this to see what your royalties would be and all that sort of thing. And then,
Cool.
You're good to go. You'll also see over here on the distribute, you'll see, the channels and the this and the that and the description and all that sort of stuff. And then there's this publish on Kindle. And so when I'm ready to publish on Kindle, that's what I click on to actually send all of the information directly over to Amazon, and it creates an entry on Amazon for me to then go and kind of walk through the same process, and it transfers all the files, all the cover, everything. So then you're going over to Kindle and you're setting your prices for the Kindle publication of your book.
This is amazing.
Oh, it's really cool. It's really cool. It's just intimidating. The first time I found this website, I was like, is this the right one? Is this where I want to do this? And when I found that other person at Starbucks who was doing the same thing, and she had been looking at this same site, we felt like we validated each other that we were on the right track.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So just another, so we didn't go through everything here. Like here, let's see, the sales and marketing. Yeah, that's just information.
Direct sales, marketing service.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to, okay, so I can delete this because I'm not really going to do anything with that. Maybe eventually someday I'll do something, but I can delete that title. It's not a big deal. So then you can do reports where I can run a new report. I haven't sold anything in January, But let's say that I want to look at the previous month, or I can do custom. Let's do custom, and let's take a look at
The year.
2017.
Yeah.
Okay, so 12/31, 2017. Okay.
Perfect.
So any ID, any book ID, and I'm going to run my report.
Ooh.
Okay. So no, I haven't made a ton of money, but it's money, right?
Yeah. Hi, Kitty.
So I've sold 15 books, and you can see, some of them I've sold 2 copies. So let's take a look at the let's take a look at this one here, and we can look at the details. And it will tell me that one was sold in August, one was sold in December, and the sales channel was expanded distribution. So I made less money on those 2 because there's royalties with the distribution channel that also get paid. Okay. So if this had actually been paid or bought on Amazon, I would have a higher royalty.
Right.
Okay. So any questions about CreateSpace that you have? Anything at all?
Super cool.
It is.
Very cool.
No, this is really neat. I was going to ask you, that one field that said the lowest price that you should, it was like $9.93. I don't know if you've tested it. Can you do it lower than that? And then, I mean,
I don't think that they will let you.
okay. So that's the
I don't think they will
minimum
let you
cost
because it starts eating into their profit and your margin.
okay.
And that's probably the margin that they will accept. Okay, so for example, that $9.93 on that particular book, that's a pretty big book.
Yeah.
My Bonner family history book is a fairly large one because I've got tons of information about them. I have lots of information about the Bonner family, much more so than, say, the Skelton side of my family. It's a much smaller book as far as number of pages and everything. Okay, so the Bonner family history book, they may set a price minimum of $10 because the cost to produce it may be $5, and their margin is $5. You see, and they're not going to let their margin suffer because you set a lower price. So if you ever get started with something like this and you're kind of walking through it, you could always call me or ask me, what I did with something. But for example, just to go back and kind of show you, that picture that's on there is all of my father's first cousins. That picture was taken back in the 1940s. Right? So all of those little kids, one of them is my father.
Cool.
And on all of my family history books, there is some picture on there that is of a family member in that line. And it's pretty cool. I think it's a great cover. And it cost me nothing to do it that way, because all of this is a template that is within the cover portion of setting up the book. So let me stop my sharing so that I can pull up the other one. So hold on just a sec.
Oh, there's another site. Okay.
I was going to ask you, Dr. Bonner, once I think the option was like upload to Kindle. Once you're there, are you searchable by author plus the title? Do you know?
Yeah.
It is. So
you can actually go to Amazon and you can look up Julie Bonner and you'll find me there.
Okay.
You could look up the title of my book and you will find me there. You can.
ISBN, all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see.
Okay, so you guys okay with continuing on? Because I know we're going longer than an hour.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I have people coming over,
No worries.
so I have
We
to
are
go.
recording it, so.
Okay, awesome. And the one thing that I would love to be able to add to this, I'm not sure if anyone else is interested in it, is the actual content. So I mean, I have all of these ideas running around in my head, and how do I separate that into chapters and just the whole writing style? And
Yes. But what we could do is have another session, because I could go through with you kind of how I decided that I wanted to organize the autobiography that I did.
right, yeah.
And there was a specific way that I decided I wanted to organize that. And that does take a little thought process to figure out what it is that you want to do. And even on the family history books, I had to really think about how I wanted to organize that. And I can go through with you how I organized that. So that it can give you some ideas about how you would put something together. We could always do another.
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely be interested in that.
Okay, all right.
Me too.
Okay, so I will listen to the rest of the recording. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Okay, so let's go to Amazon. Okay, so here is the Amazon site. So when CreateSpace actually sends all this information over, it creates this item. And so it'll come over in a unpublished, or I forget exactly what the category is, but you then start working with the book on Amazon. Okay. And what this is, it's kdp.amazon.com. The KDP stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. All right. Now you'll see here when you come in here and it opens up to your bookshelf, and it will say, because you can actually not even deal with CreateSpace at all. Okay. So it used to be that when you came in here, the only thing that you could do was create a Kindle ebook. That's all you could do. But now you actually can create a paperback directly from here.
Oh.
Okay. So the reason that I like to use CreateSpace still is that it's got all those other distribution channels other than Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I still use it. And I start there because I can then import it. It's not a big deal. Okay. So that's why I do that. Okay, so here are all the books, and every time I created them over on CreateSpace, I sent them right directly over because I wanted the Kindle ebook to be an option. One other thing too, which is kind of cool about the Kindle ebook version, and this is kind of nice, and this is something that I mentioned to you, Dason, about family history books, is that at least with the Kindle version, I can set times of the year where I give away free versions of the book. So if you have immediate family members that you want them to have a free copy, you can do that. And you can say, hey, I'm going to have it for free from this date to this date. You go download it. But if you miss that window, you'll have to wait
Right.
till I can do it again, right? Because you're given a 5-day window every 90 days that you can offer your book for free. And so I've often given away books to my close family members because they want to have their copy. But they have to have a Kindle in order to do that. I can't give them a free copy of the softcover book. It'll cost me money. Unless you want to do that, you can certainly do that. And I've done that a couple of times with people where I just eat the cost of it because it's so cheap to get the softcover, or to get that softcover copy. And so it's no big deal. But that's one of the great things about the Kindle version is that it's a way that I think drive sales. So every 90 days, I actually set that 5-day window for anybody to pick it up for free. Because I figure it's a way of marketing. Because if somebody has it and they like it, they will tell other people that they like it, and there's only that 5-day window. So it's not like you're giving away the whole thing and always and all that sort of stuff. So.
Is it just free, or can you also do like a percentage, like it's down to 25% off for a 5-day window or something like that? Do you know?
No, these are promotions, and I'll show you in a moment this promote and advertise thing.
Yeah.
You can have, and I think this is kind of where you're going, is that if somebody bought your softcover book for the full price, you can set the Kindle version to be 99 cents.
Oh, okay.
I've seen that.
Add-on, or a free add-on. You can set it as a free add-on, you can set it as a 99-cent or a greatly discounted add-on.
Okay.
You can do that. But I've only seen a free version as a promotional thing, unless they've changed it. I haven't been in here in a while, so we'll go explore that in a minute.
Sure.
I'm going to go into the edit ebook details. I hope this is helpful. this is really not a big deal. It's just that if you're trying to figure it out on your own, it's really hard. I mean, it took me a year or so to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. So I'm helping you avoid that.
This is really valuable to me. I mean, it's also inspiring just to know that you've done this, that you've gone through this process. And I'm not interested in the money aspect, but
yeah, neither was I.
Yeah.
It was like the money that I make is just gravy. It's like, oh, sweet, I sold a book.
Yeah, I just want to do it. It's just something I want to do. So it's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Too.
So, yeah, the reason I wanted to write was not for the money. It was for the legacy. I really wanted that legacy. It's the only thing I have to after I'm gone, for people to look at and go, oh, she created that, right? It's like my YouTube channels, It's the only thing that I'll be able to give anybody, really.
I really like that. I like that concept.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Me too.
So here's the details. A lot of this comes in immediately from CreateSpace, but some of this you still have to fill in. But you'll see, it's got the title and blah, 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 and all that. Now, on the CreateSpace, remember, if you make any changes over there, you will still have to come here and make the changes, because if you send it as, send it to, it'll actually come in here as a separate title. And you got your editions, your authors, all that lovely stuff, so that is all, just stuff that you're familiar with now.
Right.
Okay. And you can add more keywords if you find that you need something else to be in there. You can edit the categories. And if you're on Amazon and you're looking for books, you'll notice that they have all these categories. Like when people are searching for books, they're looking on these categories. Okay. And so that's why you want to be, and you can set at least 2 browse categories. So if your book falls into a couple of different categories, you can actually put it into 2 different categories, which is good from a marketing perspective because,
Right. You find it easier.
Exactly.
I have a question. Sorry to interrupt. I went onto CreateSpace and looked for your book, A Different Drummer, and I looked by your name, and that book didn't come up. So I looked up by title, I found it, and I clicked on it to buy, and it went to Amazon. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not actually buying it from CreateSpace.
Okay. So that stuff is pretty clear. The ebook content is very similar, where this is where you upload your manuscript and all that sort of stuff. And if you've imported it over from CreateSpace, it'll come in automatically. One of the things you will want to do is that you'll have to go through the same process that you went through in submitting on CreateSpace for them to look for errors and things like that. Because a Kindle book format is very different than a soft cover book format. So
Sure.
you will have to go through that process of making sure that it looks good on a Kindle.
Right.
Okay. So you'll still have to do that.
Have you had any issues with formatting or font specifically? I mean, that's what that review process is doing, but.
Yeah. No, not really. The most problems that I've had is because I have weird names in my family history book, and they will always, ask you about that. And then the pictures. The pictures are really critical. If you have those in there, that's the biggest thing you'll have to work with.
Question about font. Jason, that was good. Made me think, what's the best font for a book?
I still use like Times New Roman 12.0.
Yep. Yeah, just like APA. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the new federal standard is Comic Sans. I think that's.
Oh, I like Comic Sans.
Mm-hmm. And you can decide. You can decide what you want to do. Because you get to see it before it gets published. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Because that's an easy thing to change.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to change it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my book cover, that imports coming over. This launch previewer. So just to give you an example of what this looks like, I'm going to see if this will work. I'm going to launch the previewer. And so it actually shows you what it looks like on a Kindle.
That's pretty cool.
That is
And
cool.
you can walk through the pages. So there's my ISBN numbers. Right. So this one we did before my mother died. This was the one that we did in 2014 before she died. And so, I had both our names there. So now any future versions, it just has my name on it. But But yeah, this book is available for purchase as softcover and Kindle version on Amazon. And here's the ISBN.
If we have another session like this, I'd be curious as to your experience with working with your family or another author. I was almost thinking of, because I think I mentioned I'm interested in doing something with my mother, but I didn't know if I should get her like voice recognition software. I don't think her typing would be great, but I don't know how we don't have to talk about it now, but I'm just in the process. Yeah.
Yeah, there are tools that are free, that are easy cheesy. You may still have to do some editing, but it wouldn't be bad. Wouldn't be bad at all. Okay. So this is what my book looks like. I put a dedication in there. There's my table of contents. You know, there you go. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let's go find a picture. See if we can find a picture.
Did it automatically change the table of contents to a link?
Yeah, for the Kindle version, you want them to be links.
Definitely.
So that people can actually touch the screen and they can go to that section.
Is that an automatic
Exactly
process?
how this is built.
Yeah, okay.
That's exactly how this is built.
Gotcha.
So there's my grandfather, Woodrow Cecil. Okay. So there's my dad. There's a picture of my father. Okay. And that was an actual black and white photo. And there's my mom. Right? So now you see kind of, you know, the fact that you can put the pictures where you want them to be. And there's a couple of letters from my father to me that I put in there. I just kind of glossed by those. There's me. Yeah, I played drums. There's my snare drum. There we go.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I would like to ask an unrelated question. If you write a book that you'd like to use for your students, and you don't, of course, you won't make any profit on it because it's for your students, how does that work?
Like, for instance, if I did do a book that I actually used in class, I would have to alert the university that I'm doing so.
Right.
Sort of thing. And then there would be some sort of agreement that we come to as to what will happen with the proceeds of that. And what that looks like, I don't know.
Right now, books go to our bookstore, and of course I haven't found any, so I've created giant PowerPoints for my students, which have the main topics of what I teach.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'd like to put those into a book or several books, and it would have to go through our bookstore, I think, and I don't even know what that would look like because I know, you know, teachers can't make profit from that, but I do want it available because it would make my job much easier.
Right.
If I kept teaching.
Yeah, and you'll just have to talk to your university about, you know,
how
what
that
their
works.
protocol is and, you know, what you may have to sign in order to do that or something like that.
Okay. You haven't done that yet then?
Yeah. No, I have not, but Dr. Portley's has.
Yes, I've read, last year, couple of her books.
It's a question you could always ask her. She's always willing to share information. She's, you know, yeah.
I'll send her an email. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Okay. And then let me go back here so let's look at the pricing. Because you will price a Kindle version differently than you will your softcover version. Okay. Now, it will ask you if you, which territories you want to distribute to. And so for instance, you can actually select individual territories. I've selected all territories, meaning the book can be sold in India, it can be sold in Great Britain, it can be sold in Mexico, it can be sold in Canada, it can be sold anywhere. So wherever they sell books, I can sell books there. Okay. And especially when I offer that 5-day free period, people pick up my book from everywhere, you know. And I've actually sold some in Great Britain. Haven't sold many anywhere else. I think I sold one copy in India one time. I think I sold a copy in a few times in Canada. You know, so all those, all that currency gets converted into US dollars, all that kind of stuff, you know. But I make it open to everywhere. It's like, okay, as long as you can read English, you know, have fun.
Oh, do they have translation for books if you can't read English? and they want to.
Yeah, I would imagine you'd probably have to work with an editor that would translate it. I have not seen any translation services on these platforms.
Okay.
But that is a possibility. If you work with somebody, you could always share royalties with them, you know, etc., and work out whatever arrangement you want to. So if you want it to be in Spanish, or you want it to be in French, or you want it to be in whatever languages, you can do that.
Cool.
That would be a separate upload of the book, though, right?
Yeah,
Not
it'd be a
like-
separate book.
Yeah, it's a separate book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So then you select your royalty plan, and there are differences between these two. I'd have to look up the differences, but yeah, you want to make sure you understand the difference between those two. And it's been a while since I've actually set up a book, so I'd have to go back and refresh my memory about, you know, what the differences are here. And so then you're setting a price, and this is what it would be, you know, for a royalty and all that sort of stuff. Then these other marketplaces, it will actually do all of the translation of that US dollar price. So it shows you in India what it would be in rupees. It shows you in the UK what it would be in British pounds. It shows you what it would be in euros for Germany. France, it's euros. Spain, it's euros. What is IT? Italy, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Netherlands, all of those are euros. Then Japan, it shows it in the Japanese currency. It shows it in the Brazilian currency. That's Canada. Mexico. Okay, because I'm selling them everywhere, and there's Australia.
Yeah.
Okay. But it does all that translation for you so that you know kind of what it looks like in all these different countries and all that sort of stuff. And then here's where the matchbook thing is, and that's where I was telling you. So this is, you have to tell it to actually be enrolled in the Kindle Matchbook. So if you buy it as a soft cover, what would it cost for people to get the Kindle version of it? And you can do $2.99, $1.99, 99 cents, or free. And I figure, you know, for most books, I set the softcover price fairly low, so I'm not going to give it away for free.
No, shouldn't.
And then I allow lending, and so they can lend it out. One of the things that Kindle does is that if people are reading it through their lending program, they actually pay you for that. It's a small amount, but it depends on the number of pages that are read. So I allow the lending program and everything, and I actually get royalties from that, because if people borrow it and they read it, they're still paying a certain amount per page that they read, and I'll show you that in a moment. And then you hit publish, and voila, you're on Kindle.
You win. Cool.
So coming back here, I want to go to the report so I can kind of show you what I was talking about there. And forgive me, I have to, let's see, let's do the last 90 days. So only one unit sold in the last 90 days, but here are some Kindle pages that were read. So in the Kindle lending library, when people look at a book and they actually read some pages, so this person, whoever this person was, read 115 pages.
Is it the same person that bought the book afterwards?
Nope,
A different
this is the
person.
lending library.
And then they didn't buy it.
Meaning that this person who bought it is not included in these pages. This is somebody who's borrowed a Kindle book, and it may not even be the same one that I sold, but somebody has borrowed the book and they've read it. And because they've read it, I will actually get some royalty from that.
But did they paid to borrow it?
No.
Is that how that works?
No.
It's free to send books back and forth between
You can
people?
lend Kindle books to anybody.
I did not know that.
They only have it for a certain number of days, and then they read it. Now, what may happen with that, the reason I turn it on, is because if they read it, I still get a little teeny tiny royalty from that, depending on how many pages they read. And they may want to buy it.
Right. Oftentimes they do.
So turn it on, right? It's no skin off your nose, right?
More exposure.
Exactly. And let's just see here. I want to show something else. I want to show All right, so here's my life to date. Okay.
Interesting.
All right, so here are, so for instance here, I'm looking at this one. I had free units that were sold in the United States. Well, could be anywhere. 387, and one paid unit in May of 2014.
Wow.
Right. So then there are 6 paid units, 8 borrowers of my book in June of 2015, and I gave away 371. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So this life to date gives you some interesting data. And then you see down here all of the pages that were read. Right. And then it actually gives you your royalty numbers down here. I'm not going gangbusters, but that's $242 I didn't have. I can go buy several lattes with that, so you know I'm happy with that, right?
And it'll keep coming.
Hello, there you go. All right, so any other questions you have about that? So you'll have to have a Kindle Direct Publishing account. You'll need to have the Create Space account, and you're golden. You just go from there.
That's pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool.
Now, one other thing I want to show you, because it's important. Let me stop the sharing so I can get the last website up here. The other thing that I wanted to show you is where you can go and get your copyright.
Oh.
Copyright.
Yeah, because for instance, my autobiography book, I got a copyright on it. It's only $30 and it's well worth it. You just get it, and it's kind of cool to have it, right?
Right.
So, it's the eco.copyright.gov. So on the book A Different Drummer, I got a copyright. On the book that I wrote about personal financial management, I got a copyright on that. On the book that I wrote about how to preserve your family history through the technology that we have today, that one, I have a copyright on it. All of my family history books, I don't. And there's a reason for that. For instance, most of my family history books have, they have information in them that can be found through government sources and blah, 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 and all that. And they won't allow you to copyright that material because it's free domain. You can walk into a courthouse anywhere and find the same documents.
Public documents.
Find the same information. So they don't, it depends on how you build your content and all that sort of stuff. Those typically I have not copyrighted. So I just don't do that. However, as I said, I am in possession of hundreds of letters between my paternal grandparents from World War II. And I'm in the process of getting all of those into a Word document. And I have writings of family members from 1908 to 1963 on this one side of my family. It's probably the most educated side of my family anyway, and they wrote a lot. So they have left a lot of artifacts over time. So it begins in 1908 with my grandfather losing one of his daughters. She was only 8 or 9 years old, and she died of typhoid fever. And he had written this little note about that day. And it's in his, it was in his own handwriting, and, it was just really sad for him and all that sort of stuff. So there's letters. He wrote poetry. His father wrote newspaper articles in the Cullman, Alabama newspaper in the county. So I have all these letters, all these writings, all these diary entries. I have a military diary from a great uncle who fought in World War II. He was instrumental in bringing photography to the military. And he earned a military citation for taking pictures of Guadalcanal before it was bombed and all that sort of thing. So I have all this stuff that I want to put into a historical book of some kind that gives context to all these personal writings of my family, so that there's this cross-section between what they wrote and what they were experiencing, along with the historical context of what was going on in the world at the time.
Cool.
For instance, as I've been reading these letters between my grandparents, they would say things that it's like, what the world are they talking about? I don't know what they're talking about. And I've done a lot of Google research on certain things where it's like, oh, I didn't know that existed, right? At the time. And, you know, just interesting stuff like that I think would be interesting reading for future generations of my family.
Mhm.
And I may copyright that one because, you know, that is information that you can't just find
Personal.
anywhere. Okay.
Mhm.
So anyway, and I won't bore you with going through this. This is pretty straightforward as far as actually doing it. But once you actually publish a book and you feel like you want to copyright it, this is where you would do it. And it's only $30. So I highly recommend you doing that.
No matter what size the book.
Yeah, no matter.
Would you do this before you published it, or would you publish? Does it
I
matter?
would get this afterward.
You do this after?
Yeah, because you have to give them the title and you have to give them, you know, certain specific information about your book. So you don't want that changing.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, for instance, and I just don't have the money to do it right now, but you can copyright video content through here as well. So one of the things that I am going to do eventually is all of my YouTube content I will get copyrights for, because it's my take. It's my information that I'm giving to people about how do you think about accounting, how do you work through this, and how do you teach yourself how to do it. And I believe that my approach is not exactly commonplace anywhere, and so that's why I feel like I can copyright it, and I will copyright all my family history videos and all that sort of thing. So, you know, I've got a channel devoted to that. I tell family stories through video.
Right. But the cost is different? Is that?
No, I don't think it's different. The copyright, I don't think that.
It's different video though.
Yeah, but you have to
Each
do it per video.
Mm. That's expensive.
Yeah. All right. So any other questions? We've gone about an hour and a half, but
No, I would like to do a video on actually how to do a book, how to write a book. Lots of ideas, but how do you put that into a book?
right.
How did you do that?
Yeah, I will definitely set that up so that we can kind of talk through that, because different books require kind of different approaches, I think, and or at least in my experience, they do. And so yeah, we can definitely do that here sometime soon in the next few weeks.
Great.
Okay.
This is great, Dr. Bonner.
So set up your accounts.
Okay. Like I have time to write a book right now.
Yeah, no code.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so thanks a lot. I appreciate it, and I hope this was helpful. I think it was, and we'll do another one. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
All right, bye-bye.